Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our workshop on attachment styles in romantic relationships. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Arunima Bhutani and I am a junior psychologist here at MindTribe. I have completed my master's in clinical psychology and have over 400 hours of experience working with clients. I have worked with individuals struggling with various mental health concerns, including depression, anxiety, stress, relationship issues, procrastination, etc. I take an eclectic approach to therapy, tailoring the sessions to fit my clients' specific needs by borrowing techniques from evidence-based approaches such as cognitive behavioral therapy, positive psychotherapy, and acceptance and commitment therapy. I believe every individual deserves to have a safe, non-judgmental space to process their thoughts and emotions, and I strive to provide this space to all my clients. The purpose of this workshop today is to help you gain a deeper understanding of your behaviors in romantic relationships by exploring different attachment styles. When we understand the attachment styles exhibited by ourselves and our partners, we can take appropriate measures to build security in the relationship. I feel honored that I get to support you on this journey today. Thank you for joining us for this workshop. I'm thrilled to have you all here, and I hope we have an interactive session. We also have Chitraniva here as co-host today. You all must have seen the polls and messages she's been sharing with you in the WhatsApp group over the last week. Chitraniva, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Arunima. So, hello everyone. My name is Chitraniva Mukherjee, and I have been a counselor in MindTribe. And yes, I have completed my master's in psychology, and I do specialize in overthinking, stress, narcissistic abuse, anxiety, and depression. And yes, welcome to our workshop. I hope that you love this workshop and this will bring you much more knowledge. Yes. Please go ahead, Arunima.
Thank you, Chitraniva. Okay, so before we begin, we have some rules that need to be followed in this workshop today. Keep your cameras and mics off. Unmute only when asked or raise your hand to speak. Maintain the decorum and be respectful of others. This workshop is a copyright of MindTribe, so recordings and screenshots are not allowed. Please note, I would also like to let you all know that this workshop is currently being recorded. Only the presentation and the audio is being recorded. The chat box, your names, and your display pictures will not be in the recording. However, your voice will be heard. So if you're not comfortable with your voice being recorded, feel free to use the chat box to respond or ask any questions that you may have. Here is an overview of what we'll be covering today. In today's workshop, we'll understand the meaning of attachment styles, the 4 types of attachment styles, and how to recognize them. Then we look at some different strategies to build secure attachment in a relationship. Before we start discussing the topic, I have a couple questions for you all. What do you believe makes a healthy romantic relationship? You can put your answers in the chat box or raise your hand to speak. Compatibility, that's a great answer. Anybody else who would like to share what they think are traits of healthy relationships? Honesty, timely communication. Communication seems to be a common one that everyone believes in. Respect, love, emotional availability. Those are some great answers, you guys. Thank you for being so interactive. Trust, respect, understanding core needs, similar future goals, communicating boundaries, vulnerability, support. Great. Those are some wonderful answers. Thank you so much for responding, everybody. Would anyone like to share any experiences they have related to these particular traits? Accepting the other's flaws, being straightforward. Great. You guys have some great understanding of what a healthy relationship can look like. Accepting differences. Yes, that's also an important one. Being there in bad times, being honest and good-natured. Absolutely. Those are some wonderful answers, everybody. Thank you so much for being so responsive. Another question for you all is, what is one word you would use to describe your most significant romantic relationship? This could be either the most recent one or any other that was more significant to you. Again, you can put your answers in the chat box or raise your hand to share your experience or tell us what that word would be. Cute, painful, insecurity, opposites, toxic. Those are some very mixed answers. I saw a raised hand. Would anyone like to speak? Okay, no worries. Dramatic, sometimes happy, and sometimes sad. I can understand how that can be difficult to deal with. Guys, I see there are a lot of mixed experiences here. I'm glad to see you all sharing, and thank you so much for being so open with the rest of the group. I hope as we go along with this workshop, you'll be able to get some more insights about different behaviors in relationships. Yes, Deepika, go ahead.
One word which I would use to describe my significant romantic relationship will be growth. Like it helped me in growing from a teenager to adult and knowing more about myself, how I handle myself, how I handle situation and my partner, my family's connection, etc. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That's a great answer. Growth is such a wonderful word to use here because you got to have a deeper understanding of yourself and others. Thank you for sharing that with us. There are a few more responses in the chat box. Ghosting, currently toxic, traumatic, and feeling unsafe. I'm sorry to hear that there are negative experiences here as well, but thank you so much for showing us the courage to share that with us. Okay, so before we dive into the specifics of attachment styles, let's start by defining attachment. Would anyone here like to share their interpretation of this word? Anyone, what do you think attachment means? Again, you can put your answers in the chat box or raise your hand if you would like to speak and share with the group. Emotional dependence, emotional bond. Yes, I have a raised hand here from Angeline. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so attachment is the bond that is shared between two people.
Great, that's a good definition, Angeline. Thank you so much. Yes, Rio, go ahead. I see another raised hand. Would you guys like to go ahead? Okay, Anshu?
It's just habitual, how much you are habitual to others.
Okay, that's another interpretation of the word. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Rio, your hand is still raised. Would you like to share with the group? You can unmute your mic to speak. Okay, no worries. I would request you to lower your hand. We have quite a few responses here on the chat box as well about being dependency, emotional bonds, emotional connection, being habitual of others, feeling safe around someone emotionally, the way we communicate, attachment, how we associate and in what ways with a person. Absolutely. To the extent somebody can control our mood, that's a tricky one. Finding comfort in another person. Take love as attachment, but it's not. That's also an interesting opinion. The caregiver serves as a secure base from which the child can explore the world and to which they can return for comfort and safety. Right, so this is talking about the attachment we would share with our first caregiver in our childhood. Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for your wonderful responses. Attachment refers to the emotional bond that forms between individuals, as many of you have very rightly said. It begins in infancy with our primary caregivers. This bond influences our sense of security and shapes how we relate to others throughout our lives. So John Bowlby, a British psychologist, pioneered the attachment theory, emphasizing that our early experiences with caregivers form the blueprint for future relationships. In romantic relationships, attachment manifests in how we connect, communicate, and respond to our partners. It's the foundation of our emotional interactions, affecting our ability to form secure and loving bonds. Understanding attachment helps us recognize our relationship patterns and provides insights into improving our interactions with our partners. Does anyone have any initial questions about the meaning of the word attachment? I see a raised hand. Yes, you can go ahead. Pari Godson, would you like to share something with the group? Your hand is raised. Okay, no worries. Okay. Now that we have a basic understanding of attachment, let's explore what attachment styles are. An attachment style is a pattern of behavior and thinking in relationships influenced by our early interactions with caregivers. These styles continue into our adulthoods and shape how we approach our romantic relationships specifically. Adult attachment styles impact how we perceive and manage intimacy, how we communicate in relationships, how we respond to conflict, and how we form expectations about our relationships. Understanding your own and your partner's attachment styles can lead to greater empathy and improved communication. It helps us break negative patterns and build healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Let's delve into the 4 attachment styles in romantic relationships. Each style has unique characteristics that influence how we perceive intimacy, handle conflict, and express our needs and emotions. So the first is secure attachment. Then there's anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and fearful avoidant attachment. Throughout this workshop, we will explore each of these styles in detail, understanding their specific traits and how they manifest in relationships. Any questions so far about what is the meaning of attachment styles? Can I show the previous slide? Of course. I see a question about how to maintain a healthy relationship. As I mentioned, we will be getting to that as we proceed through the workshop. So please stick around till the end. No, attachment is not a bad thing. It is in fact a very basic human trait. It starts with what we share with our caregivers, and it is a very, very natural thing to have. It is not a bad thing. Okay, so let's start by looking at secure attachment a little more closely. People with this style generally had responsive and supportive caregivers during childhood, leading to a sense of security and trust. In romantic relationships, securely attached individuals are comfortable with both intimacy and independence. They are typically able to communicate their needs and emotions effectively and manage conflicts constructively. Traits of securely attached individuals would include trusting their partner, feeling comfortable with having deep emotional conversations, while also being comfortable spending time alone, being able to seek and provide support, and managing conflicts in a healthy manner. To foster secure attachment, focus on building trust, communicating openly, and supporting each other's independence and growth. These strategies can help create a stable and loving relationship. Later in the workshop, we'll explore many more strategies to build secure attachments in depth. Who here feels that they might have a secure attachment style or knows someone who does? You can give us a thumbs up for a yes or a thumbs down for a no. Yes, I see a raised hand. Would somebody like to share? Okay, we have quite a few thumbs up. So I guess many of you feel like you have secure attachment, which is great. There are a few thumbs down as well. And hopefully as we proceed, you'll be able to see what traits you might be exhibiting and have better understanding into your own behaviors. Okay, so next, let's discuss anxious attachment. Individuals with this attachment style often experienced inconsistent caregiving in their childhood, leading to a fear of abandonment and a strong desire for closeness. In romantic relationships, they may seek constant reassurance from their partner and can become overly dependent or clingy. Traits of anxiously attached individuals would include craving a lot of closeness and intimacy, sometimes having a fear of abandonment or rejection, seeking constant reassurance from their partner, and high sensitivity to the partner's actions and moods. To manage anxious attachment, it's essential to build self-esteem and develop self-soothing techniques. Partners can also help by providing consistent reassurance and fostering open communication. Can anyone relate to these traits or know someone who might? You can again give us a thumbs up if it's a yes. And please feel free to share your experience with the group in the chat box or raise your hand if you would like. I see a few responses here on the chat box. No, I would not be able to share this particular PPT with you guys. This is currently copyright of MindTribe. I see someone has seen friends with anxious attachments and they say that this might be relatable for themselves. Okay, so as I mentioned, we'll be going and having a deeper understanding of this as we go ahead, and we'll be talking about building secure attachment further. So this is something that you can absolutely notice and work on. And it's great that you're able to acknowledge and notice these traits about yourself. That shows a great sense of reflection. Now, let's explore avoidant attachment. People with this attachment style often had caregivers who were emotionally unavailable or rejected them. As a result, they learn to be self-reliant and avoid emotional closeness. They often feel uncomfortable forming emotionally close relationships with others. In romantic relationships, avoidantly attached individuals value their independence and can be uncomfortable with too much intimacy as well. Traits of avoidantly attached individuals would include preferring independence and self-sufficiency, avoiding emotional closeness, having some difficulty expressing emotions, and having a tendency to withdraw during conflicts. To manage this attachment style, it's important to work on expressing your emotions and becoming more comfortable with intimacy. Partners can always help by being patient and encouraging open, non-judgmental communication. Does anyone here identify with these traits or know somebody who might? Again, you can give us a thumbs up or put your responses in the chat box. You can also raise your hand if you would like to share your experience. I see a couple of questions here. Okay, I have a raised hand. Yes, Deepika, go ahead.
I have a question.
Okay.
Is there any way a person who is dealing with anxious attachment can also be a person who is also an avoidant attachment?
That is a great question, Deepika, and that actually leads me to the next attachment style, which is fearful avoidant attachment. Before I get to responding to your question, I also see another raised hand here. Firoz, would you like to go ahead and share your experience?
Actually, I have a question too.
Okay.
I was wondering that if somebody is having anxious attachment style and he's closely or she's closely connected with somebody who's having an avoidant attachment style, so how do they both get along? They love each other, they care about each other, but due to their own attachment styles, the relationship is not smooth. So how do a person if somebody acknowledges, for example, if I'm anxious, if I have an anxious attachment style, I acknowledge these things, and I want to have a secure bond. So what should I do?
That is a great and a very valid question to ask. As I mentioned, once we've understood attachment styles and learned to recognize them, we will be moving on to building secure relationships and how we can create secure attachment styles in our romantic relationships. So please stick around. We will be getting to that topic soon. Yes, Pooja, go ahead. Would you like to share your experience with us?
Yes. How to identify if a person is having some of the fearful attachment, sometimes the nature is very the personality differs career wise or in relationships. So how to identify what exactly attachment this person is having long term?
Right, that is actually a very good question to ask, Pooja. I would in fact recommend that it would not be a good idea to just label yourself or anybody else on the basis of our discussion here or any questions that we might be going ahead with. It is important to explore these attachment styles deeply. If you would like to really explore and understand, I would recommend that you would reach out to a counselor or a psychologist. You can do that here at MindTribe if you would like. And we would definitely be able to help you really understand what might be going on, because this is something that requires more in-depth exploration and interviewing. So this is not something that can be done just in 5-10 minutes over a short conversation. So I would recommend that this is something that if you would like to explore or look into reaching out to a psychologist, that could be a good idea. Okay, so finally, let's look at fearful avoidant attachment style. This style is also known as disorganized attachment, and it often stems from traumatic or inconsistent caregiving. Individuals with this attachment style desire closeness but also fear it, leading to a push-pull dynamic in relationships. They might want intimacy, but they could also have trouble depending on others. I believe this was a question Deepika just asked about what might happen if somebody has both the traits. This is the particular attachment style. Traits of fearfully avoidant individuals would include desire for close relationships, but a fear of getting hurt, mixed anxious and avoidant behaviors, having difficulty trusting others, and often having emotional instability as well. Therapy and self-reflection can be very helpful in managing fearful avoidant attachment. Addressing past traumas and working on building trust and emotional stability is crucial in this situation. Partners can also support by providing a safe and consistent environment. Does anyone here feel like their partner might have a fearful avoidant attachment style, or that this is something that is relatable for them? You can give us a thumbs up if your answer is yes, or a thumbs down if your answer is no. I have a question in the chat box. Is fear of abandonment a characteristic of the fearful avoidant attachment style? Yes. So a fear of abandonment could be one of the characteristics here. It is an anxious trait, and since this particular attachment style would have both anxious and avoidant traits, a fear of abandonment might be in a fearful avoidant attachment. It is also possible that this could exist in an anxious attachment style. Will a fearful avoidant relationship will lead to the end of a relationship? That is not necessary. As I mentioned, this is something that can be worked upon and managed through self-reflection and therapy. It is not necessary that this particular attachment style has to lead to the end of the relationship. Okay, so now that we have understood what each attachment style looks like, let's try to apply this knowledge practically. I have a few case studies here for you all. I will read them out and you guys can try to recognize the attachment style that you see in this case, okay? The first case study is of Anjali. Raj and Anjali have been dating for a year. Anjali often feels insecure and seeks reassurance from Raj, who is more independent. Lately, Raj has been very busy at work and his delayed responses to Anjali's texts make her worry that Raj is losing interest. She sends multiple messages, becoming increasingly upset when he doesn't respond immediately. Anjali's need for constant reassurance creates tension in their relationship, as her fear of being unloved or rejected drives her to seek continuous validation from Raj. What is Anjali's attachment style here? You can put your answers in the chat box. Absolutely, you all are correct. This is an example of an anxious attachment style. Wonderful, guys. It's great to see that you are getting a deeper understanding of what an anxious attachment style looks like, and you're able to differentiate it from others. Thank you so much for your responses. The second case study is of Simran. Simran and Jay have been in a relationship for 5 years. Recently, Simran received a job offer in another city. She discusses this opportunity with Jay, expressing her excitement and concerns about their relationship. Jay listens attentively and shares his own thoughts. They decide to explore options together, including long distance or Jay moving with her. Simran feels confident in their ability to communicate openly and trusts they will find a solution that works for both of them. Their mutual respect and willingness to support each other's growth reflect the strength of their relationship. What do you think is Simran's attachment style here? Absolutely. Lots of responses saying this is secure attachment, which is correct. Simran is a great example of being a securely attached individual or having a secure attachment style. Great job, everybody. It's clear that you're getting a good understanding of what each attachment style looks like. The third case study is of Rahul. Rahul and Aditi have been in a relationship for 3 years. Rahul values his independence and often feels uncomfortable with too much closeness. Recently, Aditi planned a romantic weekend getaway. Rahul agreed, but he felt a little anxious about the uninterrupted time together. During this trip, he withdrew emotionally and preferred to spend time alone, making Aditi feel neglected and unloved. Rahul's need for emotional distance frustrates Aditi and creates tension, as his discomfort with intimacy leads to a cycle of pursuit and withdrawal in their relationship. What do you think is Rahul's attachment style here? Correct. This is avoidant attachment style. This is one of the ways that avoidance can reflect in a relationship and how it can create tension with your partner. Great job, guys. It's great to see that you're all being so responsive. And our last case study for the day is of Geet. Geet and Rohan have been dating for 6 months. Both have had difficult past relationships and struggle with trust. After a major argument, Geet felt hurt and initially sought reassurance from Rohan. However, when Rohan tried to comfort her, Geet became too overwhelmed and pulled away, saying she needed some space. Rohan felt confused and hurt by the mixed signals. Geet's behavior alternates between seeking closeness and then pushing away, creating emotional turmoil in their relationship. What do you think is Geet's attachment style here? Once again, you can put your answers in the chat box. Absolutely. This is fearful avoidant relationship, which reflects both anxious and avoidant traits. Great job, everybody. It's great to see your responses here. Now that we have learned to recognize attachment styles, let's examine strategies for building a secure attachment and relationship. As you all might have asked earlier, this is the section where we'll be discussing strategies to build security. Here are a few ways that you can build security in your relationship: learning your attachment style, examining your beliefs about romantic relationships, improving communication with your partner, building emotional awareness within yourself, building trust and intimacy in the relationship, having a healthy conflict resolution, setting healthy boundaries, and acting opposite to your insecure styles. Okay. First, we have an activity to identify if you have any anxious or avoidant traits. This is the part where I would request you all to please grab a pen and paper. I'll ask you a few questions that can be answered with a yes or no. Note down your answers on the paper. Before we begin, I would like to give you a disclaimer that answering these few questions alone is not enough to determine your attachment style. If you're looking to get a complete understanding of your patterns and relationships, an in-depth interview and exploration with a therapist may be required. Please don't label yourself just on the basis of these few questions. When you're ready with your pen and papers, give me a thumbs up and I'll start with the questions. Okay, lots of thumbs up here. Great, let's begin. Oops. Yeah. Question 1. Do you often worry that your romantic partner doesn't really love you? You can note down your answers and I'll give you a few seconds. You can either say yes or a no. I would recommend that you also note these answers on a piece of paper so that you can keep track of all your answers for these questions. I see quite a few yes responses in the chat box. Okay, thank you everyone. And a couple no as well. That's absolutely all right too. Like I said, there is no right or wrong answer here. This is just to get an understanding of your behaviors. So note it down on a paper so that you can keep a track of your responses. Someone says, I don't have a romantic partner. So you don't have to have a romantic partner right now in your life. If you have ever had a romantic partner, you can also think about it. Okay, question 2. When you show your feelings for others, do you worry that they will not feel the same way about you? Again, you can either answer with a yes or no. Okay. There are a few yeses, a few no. Some people say that they don't have a partner. That is absolutely all right. Okay, I hope you all have noted down your answers. Question 3. Do you often worry that your romantic partners won't want to stay with you? Again, you can answer with a yes or a no. Giving you guys a few seconds and then I'll move on to the next slide. Do these questions apply to friendship? Currently, we are talking about romantic relationships. If you would like to see the way you attach with people in your friendships, you can use some of these questions there as well. They might change a little when we are talking about other close relationships, though. Currently, these questions are focused towards romantic relationships. Like I mentioned, if you want to gain an understanding for that, there are interviews and certain tests that can be done by a psychologist. So feel free to reach out, and that is something that can be explored in therapy. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide now. Do you find it difficult to allow yourself to depend on others? Yes or no? Again, note down your answers on a piece of paper so that you have a track of your responses. Question 5, are you uncomfortable when someone gets too emotionally close to you? Giving you guys a few seconds to note your answers, and then you can answer question 6. Do you find it difficult to trust others completely? Quite a few no's here, along with a few yeses. Okay. You don't understand question 5. Are you uncomfortable when someone gets too emotionally close to you? So one way that this could reflect is emotional closeness could reflect is when someone starts to talk about personal emotions with you, or someone might start to see your emotions as well. Okay, that is one way that emotional closeness can be. Does here others mean our partners? Yes, generally, currently we're talking about romantic relationships. We are talking about romantic partners here. Of course, if you want to see your attachment with other relationships, these questions would be a little different in that sense. But yes, we can also explore how you attach in other relationships outside of romance as well. Like I mentioned, that is something that can be explored in therapy in more depth. Okay, I hope you all have noted down all your answers to these 6 questions. Oops, sorry. Give me a thumbs up when you have all your answers noted. Lots of thumbs up here. Okay, great. If you have answered a yes to questions 1 to 3, you might have some traits that depict anxious attachment in a relationship, or also called anxious traits. If you have answered yes to questions 4 to 6, you might exhibit some avoidant traits. If you have answered yes to all, you might have both anxious and avoidant traits. But once again, I'd like to reiterate that please don't label yourself based on these 6 questions. Reaching out to a psychologist could be beneficial if you wish to explore and understand your attachment style and how you behave in relationships in more depth. There's a question here. Does score keep changing according to situations? Currently, we're talking about how you would behave in a majority, right? So, for example, if most of the times you find it difficult to allow yourself to depend on others, that would be a yes. But if once you were able to depend on somebody else, that would still be a yes. Can I briefly tell the attachment styles again? Okay, just a second, guys. Okay, so trying to keep it brief here because we've covered this just now, but not an issue. So secure attachment is where people are comfortable with both intimacy and independence. There is a lot of security and trust in the relationships, and there is an ability to manage conflicts in a healthy manner. In anxious attachment, individuals often experience inconsistent caregiving. So there is a fear of abandonment or fear of rejection. This might manifest as constant reassurance from a partner, or like seeking constant reassurance from your partner, or being too dependent or clingy. Avoidant attachment would be for people who are very self-reliant and avoid emotional closeness with others. So this is somebody who values independence and can be uncomfortable with too much intimacy with another person. And a fearful avoidant attachment style would be also known as disorganized attachment, where there is a desire for close relationships, but also a fear of intimacy and a fear of getting hurt. So there is a mix of both anxious and avoidant traits. Okay, since I hear that there is a particular mic unmuted here. Would somebody like to say anything? Okay, I would request you to please mute your mic. All right. So since we've now learned and gotten an understanding of our own behaviors a little better, the next step towards security would involve examining our beliefs about romantic relationships. Our core beliefs can significantly influence our attachment style. Understanding and challenging these beliefs is key to building secure relationships. So first of all, identifying core beliefs. I see a hand raised. Yes, Vishwas, go ahead. Okay. Please lower your hand if you don't have a question that you would like to ask. First step here is identifying core beliefs. Think about your fundamental beliefs about love and relationships here. Examine what you think a healthy relationship looks like. What are acceptable behaviors in romantic relationships? Examine what you think a healthy relationship looks like to you. What are unacceptable behaviors for you in a relationship? Do you believe that love is conditional or that you might be unworthy of love? For example, if you believe that you must always be perfect to be loved, this can create anxiety in relationships. Challenging unhelpful beliefs. Once you identify these core beliefs, the next step is to challenge the ones that form obstacles in your path towards a successful relationship. Ask yourself, is this belief realistic? Is it helpful? If you believe that people always leave me, for example, try to find evidence to the contrary, such as relationships where people have stayed and supported each other. Communication is the next cornerstone of any healthy relationship. Improving your communication skills can enhance connection and understanding. First step is active listening. Practice listening actively to your partner without any interruptions. This means fully concentrating, understanding, responding, and remembering what is being said. Asking follow-up questions is also important here. For instance, when your partner talks about their day, show genuine interest and empathy. Ask them more questions about what that day was like. Expressing feelings honestly. Be open about your feelings and express them constructively. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," which might come off as attacking, try saying, "I feel unheard when I talk about my day," which allows you to express your emotions. Using I statements is the third way of improving communication. This can reduce defensiveness and promote honest communication. For example, instead of saying, "You make me angry," which immediately puts the blame on your partner, say, "I feel angry when my concerns are dismissed." This way, you can express yourself without immediately putting your partner in a defensive position. They will be more open to listening and understanding you when they are not feeling attacked. These techniques for clear communication can be useful when you are employing other strategies as well. If you have ever used these strategies, give us a thumbs up. Okay, I see a few thumbs up here. That's great, guys. I'm glad to know that you are using these strategies already. Think of a recent conflict or a discussion with a partner. How could you have used I statements to express yourself more effectively? You can share your thoughts in the chat box or raise your hand to speak. I see your response here. I used to express when his mood is good over coffee. When career issues, there is no time to meet up and all. I can understand that. Sometimes other parts of our life get in the way, and our relationship takes a back seat. I understand that is important depending on whatever stage you are in life. However, if you would like to build a secure relationship, sometimes making time for clear communication with your partner is also necessary. Swati, I would request you to please mute your mic. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So building emotional awareness is the next step here. This involves recognizing and understanding your emotions and expressing them constructively. This is very closely related to improving communication as well. First, recognizing your emotions. Pay attention to what you feel in different situations. Are you feeling anxious, sad, or happy? For instance, if you feel upset after a conversation with your partner, take a moment to identify the specific emotion you're experiencing. Are you frustrated? Are you feeling misunderstood? Are you feeling disrespected or lonely? Identifying specific emotions is the first step towards processing them. We'll discuss this further in just a little bit. The next part here is expressing emotions constructively, so very closely related to communication. Communicate your feelings in a way that fosters understanding rather than conflict here. If you're feeling neglected, instead of accusing your partner, you can say, I feel lonely and I would like us to spend more time together. Using I statements like we just discussed could be very, very helpful here. How about we practice some emotional awareness? You can think of a recent situation where you felt a strong emotion. Write down that emotion and how you could express it constructively. If you would like, you can share your example in the chat box, of course, only if you're comfortable. There are a few responses here. Understand on your partner's situation. I do express my feelings when I feel there is a lack of time for us. That is great. Emotions deal by their situation, how they deal. I'm not sure I understand that, Vishwas. If you would like to explain, that would be great. How do you deal with emotionally unavailable partners? That is a completely separate topic. I would say that requires a lot more in-depth understanding of this specific situation. Couples counseling is something that could help in building more emotional communication. There is a hand raised. Yes, Deepika, go ahead.
I will say, while recognizing your emotion and expressing it, you can treat yourself or make yourself as a third person while handling your emotion. Watch yourself as a third person, and how you will recommend or give advice to them to handle those emotions, like playing with your emotion or understanding them more. That will be helpful, I guess.
Thank you so much for sharing that with the group, Deepika. Yes, Shilpi, go ahead.
I had a question. So, how you just mentioned that when having a conversation with your partner, you should not, as in blaming.
I'm sorry, Shilpi, I'm not able to hear you. I'm not able to hear you clearly. Could you repeat yourself?
Is this all right? So, how you mentioned like having a discussion with a partner, you should refrain from blaming them on how you felt, as in using the words like because of you. I can't. I'm to rephrase the question. As in how to not blame the other person that they feel bad about the situation and put it in a better.
Okay, got it. So this is where I statements come in. You know, sometimes we tend to say, you do this, you do that, you always behave like this, you never listen to me. So repetitively using the word you and, you know, trying to use very extreme words like always and never can make our partner feel attacked. It can put a lot of blame on that person, right? If we really want to be heard, one great way of changing that sentence or rephrasing that sentence is by using I statements. Instead of saying you ignored me, you can say I feel ignored when I try to talk, right? So that shifts the conversation from their behavior to your feelings. And once you're able to talk about feelings, you can foster more open communication between the two partners, because now one person is not feeling attacked anymore. They are not being defensive about their behavior, but hopefully trying to understand what emotion you're expressing. I'm making that clear, Shilpi?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I see your raised hand. Anushka, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to ask, what if the other person constantly keeps shifting the blame to themselves even after using I statements?
If they are shifting blame to themselves, that is a completely different issue, right? Using I statements is about making sure that we don't blame our partners. If they are shifting blame to themselves, then that is something that requires to be explored in a different manner. It could be because of multiple reasons. It could be because of low self-esteem or just a pattern of blaming themselves or the locus of control, that is a separate issue, I would say. This is about making sure we don't place blame on our partners. If they are blaming themselves for certain situations, I would recommend certain more exploration, and therapy would be a great way of getting to the root cause of that behavior. I see a few responses here in the chat box.
Okay, thanks, Anna.
No problem, Anushka. Okay, if someone wants to book a counseling session, we'll be sending you a particular, link on the WhatsApp group after this particular workshop is over. You can do that there. I think you can be fearfully avoidant because of previous relationships, regardless of parental care. That is an interesting statement to make. So there is definitely a mix of different experiences. Usually parental care and how our caregivers have responded to us can be a big part of this as well. But if our particular, previous relationship happened at an important stage in our life, or if it happened at a certain juncture where we picked up on certain behaviors, that could be another type of learning happening. It's not necessary that is a style that has developed because of caregivers, but that could just be certain different things at play that represent like attachment styles. Okay, so moving on to the next strategy of building secure attachment styles. As I mentioned when we were talking about building emotional awareness, this is a technique you can use to recognizing your emotions. This is called the wheel of emotions. This is a useful tool for identifying and understanding what you're feeling. It was created by psychologist Robert Plutchik. It illustrates different emotions and their relationships to each other. It can be a great tool to help pinpoint exactly what you're feeling. For example, if you're feeling bad, you would like to say, you might use the wheel to discover that this feeling is more specifically angry or disappointed. Anger, for example, could be coming from either annoyance or contempt towards the other person. This specificity can help you address the root cause of your emotions. Trust and intimacy, or building trust and intimacy, next part of building a secure relationship. Trust and intimacy are fundamental to secure relationships, and some ways to build them would be consistency and reliability. Being consistent and reliable means that your actions match your words and you follow through on your commitments to your partner. This involves being dependable in everyday interactions as well as during significant moments. For example, if you promise to call your partner after work, make sure you do so. Be there for your partner in a moment of crisis, and be consistent with your expressing of emotions. Think of one area in your relationship where you think you can be more consistent and reliable. What small action do you think you can take to demonstrate this? You can share your answers in the chat box, or you can just note them down for yourself if you would like. I have a few responses. Never do fake commitments. Absolutely. If we make a fake commitment, as you said, or if we make a promise that we don't intend to keep, that can break the trust in the relationship. There are some loyals, but some people attack. That is understandable. The only thing that is in our control is our own behavior, and that is something that we can do. What about mistrust? So building trust is something that can be a very deep topic of its own. If you think there is a lot of mistrust in the relationship, it is important to understand where that mistrust is coming from. Words of affirmations, that can be one way of definitely, fostering communication with your partner. Yes. Can you please mention more ways people in long distance relationships can follow? All these things can be done in a long distance relationship as well. If you've promised your partner that you will call them after work, or you'll video call them after work, if you follow through, that builds consistency and reliability as well. Okay. The next step is sharing experiences. So share your experiences and create new memories together with your partner. Doing activities together like cooking a meal, grocery shopping, or going for a walk can strengthen your bond. Finding joint hobbies such as a couple's dance class, playing board games, watching movies together, trying a new restaurant together can also be ways of sharing experiences. Physical affection is the third way of building trust and intimacy. So don't underestimate the power of physical touch. Regular hugs, holding hands, or simply sitting close and cuddling can also build intimacy with your partner. Our next step is conflict resolution. Let's talk about this a little more. Conflict is a natural part of any relationship, but handling it effectively can strengthen your bond rather than weaken it. First step is to address issues calmly. Approach conflicts with a calm demeanor. This helps in discussing the issue without letting emotions escalate. You can do this by taking a pause when a discussion gets too heated or using a soothing tone when you're talking to your partner. Seek to understand, not win. Focus on understanding your partner's perspective rather than trying to win the argument. Remember, it is the two of you versus the problem, not the two of you against each other. Ask open-ended questions to understand your partner's feelings and viewpoints. Show empathy by acknowledging your partner's feelings. Lastly, find compromise. Look for solutions that satisfy both partners. Brainstorm together to find a solution that works for both of you. And be willing to give and take to find a middle ground and meet each other halfway. By addressing issues calmly, seeking to understand, and finding compromise, you can turn conflicts into opportunities for growth and deeper understanding with each other. How about you reflect on a recent conflict? How could you have applied these strategies to resolve it more effectively? Once again, you can share your reflections in the chat box, or you can raise your hand to speak. Okay. Moving on to the next step, setting healthy boundaries. This is essential for maintaining respect and balance in a relationship. First of all, define your boundaries. Be clear about your needs and expectations. For example, if you need alone time to recharge your social battery, establish a specific need for personal time and space, such as an hour a day to unwind. Another example would be to define what privacy in a relationship would mean to you. We have a couple messages here on the chat box. Trusting and sharing can build bond in long distance relationship. Absolutely, yes, it can. By having open communication, yes, absolutely. Why do I always feel my partner is the best and I don't actually deserve him even though I try to give my best to him? That is actually another thing to, explore and understand here about what makes you think that you don't deserve your partner. It could be multiple reasons. It could be a certain anxious feeling you have, could be a feeling of low self-esteem, could be multiple reasons that I would recommend you explore in depth in a private, safe space with a therapist if possible for you. What kind of attachment is it when a person isn't in a relationship and likes more than one guy at a time? That is not necessarily an attachment style that we are talking about. That could be a different issue that you might be facing. Okay, so the next step for setting healthy boundaries is to communicate these boundaries clearly. Be direct and clear when discussing your boundaries with your partner. Don't be ambiguous. I statements can be very helpful here again. For example, I feel overwhelmed when we argue late at night. Can we discuss issues earlier in the day? Yes, I see a raised hand. Please go ahead.
I have a question. If somebody, if we are having a conflict and I want it to resolve there and then, and the person in front doesn't want to even talk about it, like he or she can be good with it, like he could be normal the very next moment if we talk about any other issue rather than to talk about the issue, but I want to take it all out and talk and I don't want escapism, I want extraction. And the person in front wants escapism from that situation. He could be normal the very next moment, he could be loving, he could be caring, but he doesn't want to talk about that issue. So how, and I become very anxious in the meanwhile. Unless I have been able to talk about it, I'll not be able to, I'll be very anxious. I'll have anxiety, I'll have mood swings, I won't be able to act normally. So how to deal with that?
Okay, that's a very good question to ask. I don't think I'll be able to give you a lot of specific advice here because this is a larger workshop with a lot of people, and I might not be able to fully understand what is going on without really in just a couple minutes of conversation. This is something that requires more exploration. What I can say is that you can discuss this with your partner when you're not having a conflict. So you can bring it up that this is something I wish to talk about the way we resolve our conflicts. That could help get an understanding of why they are behaving a certain way and why you would like to resolve conflict immediately and why they need space. Getting an understanding could be helpful. But like I said, I won't be able to give you a lot of specific advice individually here. That is something I can do in a session if you would like. Okay, I hope that answers a little bit of your question. The last way of setting a healthy boundary is, right, thank you, is to be polite yet assertive. Assert your boundaries respectfully but firmly. Use polite language while being firm about your needs, but also consistently reinforce your boundaries if they are crossed. By defining, communicating, and respectfully asserting your boundaries, you can maintain a healthy and balanced relationship. Okay, let's move on to the next part, which is acting opposite to your insecure attachment styles. Would you still like to say something, Ruqayya Feroz? Your hand is still raised.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. Okay, so this is the part where we actively work on our ingrained behaviors, and this can help you move towards a secure attachment style. First of all, challenging anxious behaviors. If you tend to be anxious, practice giving your partner some space and trusting that they will return, even if it can be difficult to do so. For example, if you feel the urge to constantly text your partner for reassurance, try waiting and trusting instead. Instead of texting every hour, try waiting a few hours and trust that your partner is still thinking about you. In the meantime, practice self-soothing techniques when feeling anxious. Engage in a calming activity like reading or meditating instead of seeking immediate reassurance from your partner. Then we have challenging avoidant behaviors. If you tend to be avoidant, practice opening up and being vulnerable, even if it can be scary to feel vulnerable sometimes. For example, share personal thoughts, experiences, and memories with your partner, even if it feels uncomfortable. For example, you can talk about your favorite childhood memory or something that impacted you greatly in your childhood, or just a personal dream that you may have had. Instead of immediately withdrawing, try to stay present during emotional discussions or conflicts. When your partner wants to discuss feelings, actively listen and engage rather than avoiding the conversation altogether. By challenging these behaviors actively, you can gradually move towards a more secure attachment style and build healthier relationships. There are a few questions here. Ma'am, can you answer my question? Guys, is it okay if I answer all the questions at the end of the workshop now, because we are running short on time? Thank you so much for understanding. Okay, this is the last bonus step called managing stress. Managing stress effectively is crucial for maintaining a healthy relationship. When we are stressed, it can affect the way we behave with our loved ones. Has this ever happened to you guys? Have you ever let your stress affect the way you behave in your relationships? Give a thumbs up if you relate. Quite a few thumbs up here. I see this is something that a lot of people have experienced. So let's explore various strategies for recognizing and coping with stress. First of all, recognizing your stress triggers. Understanding what triggers your stress is the first step in managing it effectively. Pay attention to recurring situations that cause you stress. For example, if you notice that discussing finances always leads to stress for you, recognize this as a pattern and as a trigger for you. Keep a journal to track stressful events and your reactions to them. Notice any physical symptoms that arise when you are stressed, such as headaches or stomach aches. Healthy coping mechanisms is another way here. Developing healthy ways to cope with stress can help you maintain emotional balance. Some healthy ways of coping are exercising regularly, practicing mindfulness, meditating, finding creative outlets such as painting or writing, and leaning on friends and family for social support. Relaxation techniques. Incorporating relaxation techniques into your routine can help you manage stress more effectively. These techniques could include deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or visualization. Then there is healthy lifestyle. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle can help you manage stress much more effectively. A balanced diet, regular exercise, adequate sleep, and hydration are all important aspects of this lifestyle. Would anyone like to share anything that helps them manage stress specifically? You can put your answers in the chat box, or you can raise your hand if you would like to speak. Yes, Pooja, go ahead.
For me, like exercise, yoga helps a lot, like in general, and like journal writing and talking with a friend related to work, how to manage, like related to whatever current situation is. So for me, exercise, journal, and sometimes painting helps a lot.
Those are all some great ways of managing stress, Pooja. I'm glad to hear that you've got it figured out what helps you with your stress. As you mentioned, yoga is a great way of managing stress, and journaling is something that has actually been noted scientifically to help alleviate stress as well. So I'm glad that you have that figured out. We have a few responses on the chat box. Thank you, Pooja. Art therapies, knowledge and meditation, mindfulness is the best, absolutely. Reading books, music, friends, workouts, such things like hobbies and socialization, absolutely. Music therapy, calligraphy, dance. These are some great ways of managing stress, everybody. I'm glad you have a lot of ways that help you out when you are feeling stressed. So I realize that we've come towards the end of our session, and we have been, having a lot of self-reflection and talking about stress and attachment styles here. Since we just talked a little bit about managing stress, I have a breathing exercise for you all to wrap up our session. This is called boxed breathing. This technique can help you manage stress and anxiety by calming your mind and body. So let's try this out together. Sit comfortably with your back straight and your feet flat on the floor. You can lie down, or you can fold your legs if you would like. Close your eyes if you're comfortable and take a moment to settle into your position. What we would be doing here is inhaling deeply through the nose for a count of 4, then holding the breath for a count of 4, exhaling slowly through the mouth for a count of 4, and then holding that breath again for a count of 4 before taking the next breath. We'll be repeating this cycle a few times, focusing on the breath, that sensation of the air going in through your nostrils and coming out from your mouth. And we'll also be focusing on the count. Let's practice this together. I'll count and you follow along with your breathing. Give me a thumbs up when you all are ready. Great. So let's begin. Take a deep breath in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Slowly breathe out. 2, 3, 4, and hold that there. 2, 3, 4. Now breathe in again from the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out from the mouth. 2, 3, 4. And hold before taking another breath. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in again. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3, 4. You can continue doing this at your own pace while focusing on that sensation of breathing. Breathe in and hold. Breathe out and hold. Breathe in again. Hold. holding would be just to hold that breath there, not to take another breath or to release it immediately. So once you fill up your lungs with air, you hold it there for a few seconds before releasing it. And then once you've released that breath, wait for a couple seconds before you take the next breath, okay? Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. One last time, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and relax. You can give us an emoji response if you would like to share how that made you feel, or you can put it on the chat box. Box breathing is a simple yet powerful technique that you can use anytime you are feeling stressed or anxious. Regular practice can help you manage stress more effectively and maintain a sense of calm. Thank you so much for all the hearts, everybody. I'm so glad to see that this worked for you and that you liked it. That's all from my end, guys. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box now or raise your hand to speak. I see a few raised hands. Yes, Shilpi, go ahead.
So I wanted to know, how do you manage if your partner and you have different attachment styles and styles of also managing conflicts?
That's a great question. So first of all, it's important for both the people to understand their own and each other's attachment styles. Then it's important to communicate about it, right? We've talked a lot about building secure attachment today. So open communication is very, very important. And then conflict resolution is something that needs to be done calmly and respectfully. The idea is, like I mentioned, seek to understand, not win. So try to see the other person's perspective. Try to be patient and respectful of their challenges as well. And try to understand them instead of trying to win over them, right? And of course, this is something that can have a very long answer depending on your specific situation or the situation you might have observed. Couples counseling can be helpful in fostering better and healthier communication if that is something you would like to explore. Yes, Angeline, go ahead.
Yeah. So this attachment styles, other than romantic relationships, it also applies for any other relationships, right? Like family, friendships.
Right. So like I mentioned, this is something that the questions might vary and change a bit if you're trying to understand your attachment with other relationships. But yes, this is something that can foster in other relationships outside of romance as well. Today, the session was focused specifically on romantic relationships though, but it can happen in other relationships, specifically close friendships and close family members as well. So if you would like to explore your experiences in close relationships, that is something that can be done.
Sure. So if attachment applies to the other relationships also, do we have different attachment styles in different relationships? Let's say in romantic relationships, maybe I'm anxious, and to my friends, maybe I'm avoidant. Is it possible to have different attachment styles?
That is a very good question. So it depends on what your individual experiences have been like. Like I mentioned, I can't give a lot of specific individual advice without really understanding and exploring your context and your situation. But it is possible to have, multiple people who trigger us in different ways, or sometimes, having had different relationships. So you've seen the fearful avoidant attachment style that has both anxious and avoidant traits. So it's important to really get a deeper understanding of what is going on without really labeling yourself here.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yes, Pooja, go ahead. I see you raised your hand.
I just want to ask, how to approach someone, for marriage, long term, if a person is going through a anxiety or a headache long term career wise and in general? How to convince the parents and the person? Like maybe they are not so open minded and they take a back home. So how to convince them or talk to them if the things are going well related to marriage later on?
Okay, I see that that's a very specific question, Pooja. Like I mentioned, giving a lot of specific individual advice is not something I'll be able to do because it requires a much more deeper understanding of your specific situation. If you just want to figure out a way of communicating with your partner, though, that is something where you can use the techniques we discussed today for improving communication. Coming in calmly and using I statements and trying to understand the other person. Of course, for more specific individual counseling, I would recommend that you can reach out to me individually. I will be happy to take you up if you would like to have a session. I'm sorry, I will not be able to really focus individually on very specific cases here because that requires a lot more time and understanding. Yes, Rukaiya Firoz, go ahead.
My question is that how can we build a healthy boundary in a relationship? Like if somebody is sad, we can give them some time to process their sadness or to process what they are going through. And then rather be anxious about it, rather spoil your own mood and be a burden on them. Like how to regulate our emotions in a relationship. Without causing any burden or without being you the problem.
Right. That's a very good question. And it's often noted that people who are, sometimes when we are in our close relationships or romantic relationships, which are truly very vulnerable in nature sometimes, we tend to take on the other person's mood. That can happen. Setting healthy boundaries with your partner and in your emotional expression and understanding is a great way of not letting it affect you so much that it becomes an issue for you, like you mentioned. We've discussed a few strategies of setting healthy boundaries today. Now, that is a lot about telling them how, we talked a little bit about, okay, for an example that I gave you, I said that you can say, I feel overwhelmed when we argue late at night. Can we discuss issues earlier in the day? That was the example I mentioned when talking about communicating boundaries clearly. The same can be done when we're talking about emotions. You can set a healthy boundaries by telling your partner what it makes you feel like, and then set your boundary. For example, the way this example said, can we discuss issues earlier in the day? You can set up exactly what you would like for the particular relationship to be like in terms of emotional expression and exchange. So setting healthy